Hey, it's your boy Fasscoupe, and you guys are now welcome to the crib. I'm gonna need you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn me up, you feel me? Mi casa, su casa, my crib is your crib. Anything you need me to do differently, drop it in the comments. And if you like it, make sure you press like. You see what I'm saying? And definitely subscribe so you can get some more of this content, man. It's your boy, you feel me? I can rap, I can pod, I can do it all, baby. Jack of all trades. I'm the master of none, but better than the master of one. Dig what I'm trying to say? The crib. All right, man, it's your boy Fasscoupe. You guys are now welcome to the crib, man. If you've been following Fast for some time now on the music level, I transitioned and I also have, a podcast platform called The Crib, man. So definitely, lock in. We're going to have some good, juicy content. I'm getting, nice with this stuff now. My favorite rapper is Max B. And, he's actually going to come home this November. You feel me? And that's great news. As you know, Jim Jones is going crazy right now, and, Max B is resurfacing a lot due to, his history with Jim Jones. So I kind of want to give a backstory on Max B and, who he is now. Max B ended up getting sentenced to 75 years in jail originally for a conspiracy, a robbery attempt that went wrong. And he wasn't the, man behind the trigger, but they said, he kind of put the play together. So we're going to actually dive into the story because it's actually pretty crazy how it went down. Now, we're going to start off with this. So this article was written by Benson and Chris and Porter D in 2009. It's called The Fall of Max B. All right, let's get it. The sky was crystal clear on the morning of June 9th, 2009 in Hackensack, New Jersey. With an entourage including his lawyer and the camera crew, Charlie Wingate, also known as Max B, confidently strolled through the parking lot of the Bergen County Courthouse. As he approached the fortress-like building, he told the camera that he'd been found innocent and leave a free man. His attorney, Gerald Saluti, bragged about his cross-examination of the state star witness and was pretty sure of a victory. The mood in Max camp was extremely optimistic as they walked towards the courthouse thick stone walls. But the way that Charlie Wingate had been riding would abruptly knock him over that morning. In the Hackensack courtroom of Judge Harry G. Carroll, Max would be found guilty and possibly spend the rest of his days in a New Jersey prison. Like most other court proceedings, it was mundane, almost boring. Judge Carroll read the charges and the jury's forewoman replied guilty to nearly every one. Then the jury was polled and they all agreed that Max and his stepbrother Kevin Leardem had planned a crime that resulted in one David R. Taylor losing his life. The jury exited. Max and his lawyers embraced, and a stoic Mr. Wingate kept his composure as he was placed in handcuffs, unlikely to be a free man ever again. So that's pretty much how the trial went. You feel me? They thought he was going to take it home, but he didn't. Now we're going to get into, where the origins of this case and, the origins of, Max B and Jim Jones and stuff like that. On January 18, 2005, inmate 97A2823, a.k.a. Charlie Wingate, walked out of the 1E Correctional Facility a free man. He had maxed out, no pun intended. On an 8-year bid for robbery in the first degree, it would appear that Max came out determined to make up for the lost time. How he got involved with diplomats Capo Jim Jones is anybody's guess, but Max certainly must have made an impression. 7 months after his release from prison, the rapper's single was heavily featured on Jones' second solo album, Harlem, Diary of a Summer. In fact, the lead single Baby Girl was co-written by Max and got fairly significant radio play, considering the independent nature of the release. Whatever else one might say about Joseph Guillermo Jones, aka Jim Capo Jones, no one can say that he is a man who would let an opportunity pass him by. Having started his career as a hype man for his friend Harlem rapper Cameron, Jones did not hesitate to walk through the doors Cam opened for him. Along with another Cameron protege, Joel Santana, they formed the Diplomats. Once Cameron strong-armed his way out of a bad record deal with Sony Epic, almost immediately came sound of Rockefeller Records. Through his longtime affiliation with Rockefeller co-founder Damon Dash and the Harlem Group's debut went platinum. Jones had bigger plans, though. When the majors weren't interested, he launched his solo career through indie label Koch, now DBA E1 Records. His first album sold surprisingly well, but Jones was still mostly known for being Cameron's sidekick. It was not until he began working with Max B that Jones would come within striking distance of the level of wealth and fame he so clearly wanted. So I need y'all to understand, man, Max B was the reason that Jim Jones was just able to really get his own, footing as his own solo artist. You feel me? Stack bundles too. This complex interwoven tale starts in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Baltimore native Gina Mary Conway was living in North Carolina in 2005 with her common-law husband of nearly 10 years. So we're about to get into, some more Max B stuff. That's the way this is kind of, looking right now. She was a huge fan of the Diplomats, the Harlem-based rap crew fronted by Cameron, Jim Jones, and Joel Santana. Her admiration for Dipset was evident in the amount of time she spent in chat rooms singing their praises. Miss Conway had to have been thrilled when she heard that Dipset was to perform a show in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The fact that she was able to get a backstage pass to the show no doubt added her elation. This excitement was tempered when she realized that she would not be meeting Cam or Jewels. As the show was headlined by Jim Jones, disappointed about not meeting her rap idols, Miss Conway did take the time to introduce herself to the Diplomats that were there. Among the performers she interacted with was Charlie Wingate, also known as Max B. While she would claim later in court that she only talked to him in order to smoke his weed, Gina and Max's relationship would end up being something neither party would soon forget. Now, make sure you pay attention to Gina. She's very important to this case, you feel me? It was only about a month after this initial meeting that Max convinced Gina to move to New York to live with him. So she packed her life up and left her husband in North Carolina to cohabit with Max at his residence at 1950 Andrews Ave in the Bronx. By all accounts, it was a sordid affair. Max was busy getting his rap career together while Gina was plying her trade as an exotic dancer at the Bronx Gentlemen's Club, Sin City. Neither of these professions makes monogamy easy, and beyond that, neither person seemed like the marrying type, a fact that came up repeatedly in the trial. With various boyfriends and girlfriends in the picture, this initial arrangement did not last long. About 6 months after moving in, Gina and Max parted ways. Gina returned to her native Baltimore to live with family. You see what I'm saying? Gina and Max. This first breakup was only the beginning of the end for this couple. After a few months apart, Max was once again able to convince Gina to move back to New York to live with him. But this time there was one small caveat. Max was now living with another woman by the name of China. But as we will find out, Gina is an open-minded woman, so this fact did not deter her. She jumped at the chance to join Mr. Wingate's harem. While the excitement arrangements aren't clear, both women consider themselves to be Max's girlfriend and didn't mind the presence of the various other women that he dealt with. Like all good things, Gina and Max's second act did not last. China, a woman so striking that Saludi prefaced her every mention in court with that fact, became pregnant with Max's child. Max and China thought that Gina should no longer live with them, so Miss Conway was forcibly thrown out of the apartment. At this time, it's about a month before David Taylor's death. Now, pay attention to this part, you feel me? She got kicked to the curb, you see what I'm saying? And she's still out there, you feel me? But again, the story of these two lovers did not end there. Gina was determined to stay in New York and carve out her niche in Harlem world. In August of 2006, she moved in with one Michael Murder Mike Wingate at 480 St. Nicholas Ave. Murder Mike is one of Max's brothers. Also living there at the time was Max's uncle Hassan and one of Mike's girlfriends. The fact that she lived with people related to Max says a lot about Gina. She still had very strong feelings for Max. She still called herself his girlfriend and saw him on a daily basis. Despite their rocky relationship, the two remained very active in each other's lives. At this point in her life, Gina seemed very driven to remain in New York. The life she always wanted was starting to become a reality in her mind. But New York is an expensive town, even if one doesn't have a 4 to 6 pill per day ecstasy habit like one Miss Conway was allegedly nursing. In order to support her addiction and establish herself in NY, Gina supplemented her dancing income by pushing coke for Uncle Hassan. It became clear that Miss Conway would be down for just about anything that would help her stay in NY and remain in Max's life. You see what I'm saying? She still was out there. Early 2006 was the calm before the storm for Charlie Max B. Wingate in more ways than one. We can only assume that having gone from prison inmate to somewhat successful rapper, ghostwriter, hook specialist in only 1 year must have been a nice turnaround. But at the same time, Max was thirsty for the limelight, and in the grand scheme of things, he was still just a sidekick of a sidekick. While the rapper was undoubtedly getting some money from Jim, clearly in Max's mind it was not enough. Unsurprising given his appreciation for the finer things in life, still Charlie was heavily involved in working on Jim's forthcoming album and had snagged an attention-grabbing feature on the chorus of a Cameron song attacking Jay-Z called You Gotta Love It. The song was getting spins due to the controversial subject matter, and Max's slurred sing-song flow stood out. People began to mention his name. Jim Jones also paired him with Bird Gang, a crew of street rappers that Jones was trying to form into a new wing of the Diplomats movement. Things seemed to be heading in the right direction. See what I'm saying? So that's how, Max really got his big shot, was when he hopped on the song with Cameron. You feel me? That was his biggest street song, his opportunity to really make some noise. Let's get back into it. The seeds to this crime were first planted in April 2006 when the men who had crossed Gina's path began making money hand over fist. According to court documents, this was when Alan J. Plottin first began his mortgage and mail fraud scheme. Using the name of a fictitious closing agent, Harrison and Associates, Plowden received a loan from Novastar Mortgage in the amount of $300,000. The proceeds were then wired to an account in California bank held by Virtual Automated Technologies, VAT as it's called. Produces stored value cards, SVCs, which function like ATM cards but are prepaid through VAT, not linked to a bank account. Plowden via Harrison and Associates had these cards sent to a mailing address in Atlanta. From April 9th to April 12th, the funds that Novastar mortgaged to Harrison and Associates were withdrawn through numerous ATM transactions. So pay attention to this dude right here. He's a get money scam nigga, you feel me? Emboldened by the success of his first scam, Plowden sought to do it again. This time he upped the ante. Significantly, court documents allege that in August of 2006, another fake company, Williams and Associates, applied for a home loan from Countrywide Financial. This time, Plowden struck, obtaining a loan worth $1,426,769.62. On August 10th, this money was wired to United Community Bank. 4 days later, the funds were wired to Vita Mayer, a subcontractor of Virtual Money Inc., who issued SVCs paid for with the proceeds of his loan. On the 17th, the cards linked to this Virtual Money were mailed to an address in Bethesda, Maryland. Over the course of the next week, this money, like the money from the Novastar loan, was made available to Plowden via numerous ATM withdrawals. So I'm saying he's getting money, man. Despite the attention spent on this case, exactly what David Taylor's role was in Plowden's scheme and his past in general remained murky, at least in the documents and testimony Kool-Aid was able to procure. What we do know is that in death, Taylor was found in possession of falsified passport and other materials related to the mortgage scam his partner was running. It seems safe to assume his association with Plowden must be connected to the fact that both men are from Florida. Whatever their past was, once they began making the rounds in New York City, Plowden and Taylor stuck close together. So you see, Plowden's the money man and Taylor's like, his man. You see what I'm saying? Taylor ended up getting deleted at some point in time, and that's the dude that, was tied to the Max B case in terms of the conspiracy for the murder. You see what I'm saying? So make sure y'all paying attention. It get more tricky. Getting the money turned out to be the easy part of Jay Plowden's scheme. Holding onto it would prove to be an entirely different matter. Like the suitcase in Pulp Fiction, Plowden's bags of money would attract problems from all directions. While he's orchestrating the withdrawal of his cake, Plowden and Taylor met with an individual who, unbeknownst to them, was actually an undercover FBI agent. According to the numerous conversations that were recorded on that day, August 16, 2006, Plowden was seeking to launder large amounts of the cash. The U.S. Attorney's Office was unwilling to discuss how the FBI identified the two men or the details of how they were lured into this money laundering sting. But we do know that Taylor and Plowden revealed that they got the money through ATM withdrawals and agreed to the undercover agent's fee for washing the loot. Crazy, man. The two men continued to attract attention that would cost Jay Plowden his freedom and David Taylor much more. At some point after arriving in New York City and during the months before the Bergen County robbery, the two out-of-towners frequented a motor vehicle accessory business in the Bronx. It was there that they met Julio Cruz and Edward Blackano, two New Jersey residents who are referred to in the U.S. Attorney's charging documents as the car thieves. Plowden was allegedly at the rim shot, in words of Kevin Leardam's attorney Jennifer Bongine, to get his Mercedes-Benz tricked out. While Bongine believes that he may have had other illicit business with Plowden and Taylor, all we know for sure is that the two Dominican men eventually introduced Plowden and Taylor to two women, Mate Castro and Giselle Neves. It would appear that the purpose of the introduction was of an amorous nature. Whether the two women were indeed prostitutes or merely posing as such is hard to assess, but we do know that they were soon conspiring with Cruz and Blackano to rob the two Floridians. So, these Dominican dudes, they try to put them together with these girls to, try to put a play together. Feel me? Amazingly, Plowden was not done making bad decisions or making new friends. Around the time of meeting with the supposed money launderer, Jay Plowden would have another fateful encounter, Gina. Gina Conway was standing on the corner of 126 in Lexington on September 20th, 2006, waiting to be picked up by Max. Plowden was also on that corner, sitting in his white 2007 Mercedes-Benz S55. Conway would later recall in the court that she felt like something shady was going on in the car. Other unknown males were in the car with him, and she thought some sort of black market transaction was going down. But Jay saw something he liked in Gina and approached her. By this point, Max had told Gina he couldn't pick her up, and in her own words, she had nothing better to do. So that's when, Gina got introduced to Jay. You feel me? And Jay's a scammer. You see what I'm saying? It's getting tricky. Undeterred by his shadiness, or perhaps more impressed with his vehicle, Gina got in Jay's car. Their first stop that night was a bar. While there, Gina knows Jay talking to another sketchy character, a man referred to in court as G-Head. Miss Conway would later share that, again, she felt like her new friend was into something illegal. But that did not stop her from putting her number in one of Mr. Plowden's phones. After a few drinks, the two got back in the Benz. Gina claimed that she told Mr. Plowden to take her to the job at the strip club, Sin City, but he had other ideas and made a beeline for a motel in Mowal, New Jersey. According to testimony, Jay was very aggressive in his romantic approach to Miss Conway. His fruitless courting was so forward that when she left, he felt obliged to give her money as a way to make amends. By this point, Gina was starting to notice the stacks of cash that her new friend had. Gina returned to the city around 4 that morning. She shared some of her cash with Max, a common practice as she claimed he was broke and always took money from her, then headed to Sin City. There she waited for a new romantic partner, Sin City bouncer Tyrone Golson, to get off work. The couple made a rendezvous at a seedy uptown motel before going their separate ways. So we going to hold up real quick, you feel me? So Max B had some slick pimping going on, allegedly. You dig what I'm saying? So he had his main squeeze, you feel me? But then his main squeeze was China, but he still was rocking with Gina, you feel me? And Gina was putting money in his hand, so he kind of was like boyfriend pimping. You dig what I'm saying? But I really can't say boyfriend pimping because, he had his main squeeze. So I'm going to say he was finesse pimping. You see what I'm saying? He wasn't gorilla pimping because it never said he was beating the bitch down. All right, we're going to get back into this. September 21st, 2006 was the beginning of the end for the circle of Harlem Hustlers. This scenario started with Alan J. Plowden calling Gina. He wanted to further apologize for his actions the last time they met by taking her shopping. Once again showing a severe lapse in judgment despite the fact that this man had almost raped her, Conway agreed to meet and told him where she lived. When she got in the white Mercedes, she began to fathom the sheer abundance of Plowden's ill-gotten revenue. He had a black bag stuffed with thousands of dollars, and she saw large amounts of cash stashed in the car's glove box and center console. Jay was going to put all that money to good use in the form of a shopping trip to one of Jersey's more expensive malls, Paramus Park. So listen, we're going to hold up real quick. So Mr. Plowden, Jay Plowden, you feel me, he got real aggressive with Gina. You see what I'm saying? Like, they were supposed to go to the strip club, and then he ended up going to the motel with her. So he kind of finessed her into going to the motel, maybe even kind of kidnapped her, right? Brought her in the telly, you feel me, and then made an advance on her. So he took it. He took the coochie from her, right? He took the coochie, but he paid her after. You see what I'm saying? So that's the thing about being a 304, ladies. Make sure y'all paying attention to this. You're going to be in situations like that. You feel me? A nigga is going to try to finesse. He's not even finesse. He's going to try to grape it. You feel me? Let's get back to it. The trip to the mall was not unlike Michael Jackson's shopping spree in the documentary. Living with Michael Jackson, money was no object, and Jay made that abundantly clear. He purchased everything that he and Gina wanted. Money was so far from his mind that on more than one occasion he forgot to take his black bag of cash with him. All sorts of cash register bells and whistles had to be going off in Gina's head at this point. Stupid money. Let's go. The two left the mall headed for a Holiday Inn on Route 4 in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Mr. Plowden checked in, had the Benz valet parked, and his luggage portaged. For some strange and fateful reason, he gave Miss Conway a key card to the room so she could use the bathroom without having to wait on him. Jay took a shower and emerged, seemingly ready for Gina to pay him back for his generous nature at the mall. According to Gina, this did not happen, and Jay decided it best that she head back to the city, as he had a long night of clubbing ahead of him. At this point, events became complicated. Attorneys for Mr. Wingate and his co-defendant stepbrother Kelvin Leader cast doubt on events as Miss Conway recalled them, without providing much of an alternative narrative. What follows is largely based on her testimony. Gina met up with Max at the basketball courts at the Lincoln House, a housing project on 132nd Street between 5th and Madison Avenues. Max was upset that she had been out of touch and demanded to know where she had been. In an attempt to make him jealous, Gina told him about Jay and his fancy Benz and the bottomless cash he had on hand. As luck would have it, Gina went in her purse for a lighter and found the key card Jay had given her. She also shared with Max that Jay would not be in the room for a while as he was out clubbing. This prompted Max to make a comment according to Gina, along the lines of getting his due for his guap. One of the trial's later moments occurred when Conway explained to Bonjean, Kevin Leardam's lawyer, the meaning of guap. So pretty much, Mac just pull up on Shorty, right? He's like, yo, what's up with you? Where the fuck you been at? And then, she kind of insinuate, she been fucking around. And then she's like, yo, look, you know what I mean? We got to play. You feel me? Now let's get back into it. Subsequently, Gina went with her and Max's mutual friend, Chinchilla, to get some E-pills. Ironically, her pill was spot Her pill spot was on the same corner where she had met Mr. Plowden. She returned to Max around midnight on what is now the 22nd of September 2006. She took one of her 4 to 6 E-pills and imbibed some Hennessy with the crew as they watched the games. Around this time, Leardom, a.k.a. Sims, was summoned by his stepbrother and soon arrived at the basketball courts. Gina would testify that Max said if she took Leardom to the hotel room, he would love her forever. Since she had the key card and Plowden was thought to be out of the room, it was to be a simple burglary. She would jump at the chance to earn Mr. Wingate's undying affection. So she trying to win over Max with this right here, but she drunk and high. I mean, Gina recalled that Charlie Wingate's next move was to call a cab driver he frequently employed, one Madhu Genba. Mr. Leardom and Miss Conway then piled into the Lincoln Navigator and headed for the Holiday Inn on Route 4 where Plowden and his partner in crime, David Taylor, were staying. Sorry about the pause. All the pills and drinks fogged Gina's sense of direction, making what should have been a quick cab ride into a 2-hour sojourn. The trio rode all over the upper northeastern corner of New Jersey, even venturing across the state line into lower New York. This wasted time proved to be a costly error as it allowed Mr. Plowden time to return from the club. So this chick is super high, super drunk, and she's supposed to be giving the direction now. This is back in the day where GPS wasn't as common. You feel me? I think people just had to memorize where they was going, or they had to print out a map. You feel me? So she was supposed to direct them. They had to kind of figure it out, and they took too long. So by the time he wasn't going to be there, he ended up pulling up. You see what I'm saying? It was just going to be it. They're going to go up in there, get up out. But she took so long that he ended up making it home from the club. So they got a whole different situation now. You feel me? Let's get back into it. When the Navigator finally made it to the right hotel, Mr. Leardom had the driver pull into a side parking lot and told him they'd be right back. She went inside with Leardom and proceeded to room 408 where Plowden was staying. They were unable to open the door because of a problem with the key card, so Gina claimed that Sims, as Leardom was known to her, told her to call Jay's phone. They heard it ringing, confirming he was in the room, but were undeterred. Leardom came prepared, bringing with him handgun, gloves, and duct tape just in case. So this nigga's a stick-up kid. He do it for a living, you feel me? He's a guy for it, you feel me? Let's go. Gina knocked on the door and was greeted by Giselle Neves. Unbeknownst to them, Miss Neves was there as part of a plan to obtain the Plowden and Taylor's car keys in order to abscond with the luxury vehicles. In addition to Mr. Plowden's Benz, Mr. Taylor had purchased a 2007 BMW 750. Kevin Leardom burst from behind Gina Conway, brandishing his pistol. With Jay still sound asleep, Mr. Leardom kept the gun trained on Miss Neves while she and Miss Conway searched the room for the cash. It is believed that at this time, Miss Conway filled a Louis Vuitton duffel bag with valuables. She did find clothes, jewelry, and a laptop used by Jay in the various fraudulent schemes. Gina maintained that during this time, she tried to comfort her visibly distraught captive, Miss Neves. Angered about not finding the cash, Mr. Leardom confined their horses to the bathroom and told Gina to wake up the man she knew was Jay. So he sleep while all this is going on. They rushing, they going through the room trying to find it, but they can't find nothing. Jay was woken up and bound with duct tape. At Max's trial, Plowden testified that he refused to acknowledge the presence of any cash in the room and told his assailants that his partner David Taylor had the money. According to his testimony, they demanded that he call Mr. Taylor, who was in a room on a different floor with mate Castro, and tell him to bring the cash to the room. Mr. Taylor, who was about 6'4" tall and weighed about 270 pounds, entered room 408, only to have a gun jammed in his face. Apparently, he reacted instinctively and struggled with Mr. Leardom, himself a big guy, before being shot in the face. However, according to all available testimony, Taylor did not bring any significant amount of money up to the room. In a version of events supplied by the survivors, Plowden had removed a few $100s from his main stash and secured it under the mattress. Conway and Leardom allegedly took this money, along with the aforementioned designer luggage, jewelry, and laptop. Gina would later testify that she took cash from the dead man's pocket but couldn't stand to take the watch off his wrist, a task more to Mr. Leardom's temperament. At the end of the day, it was this relative pittance that the state contends Leardom and Conway were forced to abscond with after inadvertently killing David Taylor. So, man, you feel me? They was trying to run it. They did. They ran up in his pockets after he was all set, after he was deleted. You feel me? You know, this is crazy, man. According to her own testimony, upon return to Manhattan, Gina did not meet up with Max B. This seems counterintuitive since her entire story is based on the fact that Mr. Wingate planned to put her up to this robbery instead of bringing her bag of goodies to him. A man she loved who told her he would love her forever if she pulled this heist off. She sought out her new flame, Teron Golston. The two met up at Sin City and returned to Golston's place in Bloomfield, New Jersey. When they got there, Gina gave him some of the items from room 408, including clothes and a laptop. This is interesting to note due to the size of the men involved. Mr. Goldston and Mr. Plowden are similar in size, with both men being about 6 feet tall. Max B, for the lack of a better term, is a quite diminutive, topping out at about 5'7" and weighing around 140 pounds. While Gina would take the clothes of a much bigger man if they were to be given to Max is unknown. From there, Gina went to the apartment of murder Mike Wingate, where she stashed the LV duffel bag and its remaining contents. Charlie Wingate never received any property or cash that had been taken from room 408 the night David Taylor was killed. So they saying Max B ain't even getting nothing. She ran off with the next nigga because Max wasn't around or whatever the case, and she felt the way, so she ran on with the other dude, Teron. Now let's get back into it. As it turned out, Jay Plottin's 30 grand had been in the room all along, hidden under the plastic liner in the trash can. But instead of fleeing the scene of the crime or calling the police, his behavior after the robbers left was inexplicable. On the stand, Plottin claimed that he freed himself and attempted to chase Conway and lured him. A motel employee stated that he saw a partially clad Plottin behaving suspiciously in the hallway, and that Plottin told him to call the police. The police arrived to find Allen barricading his room with Miss Neves and the corpse of Mr. Taylor. He eventually came out of the room and was detained by the Fort Lee police. Things certainly did not look good for Plowden. Taylor's dead body and tens of thousands of dollars in the ill-gotten cash had been found in his room. As it turns out, the items he was missing would prove to be his undoing. The Toshiba laptop and thumb drive, which were later found in the possession of Gina's friend Teron Goldston, provided the FBI with a detailed record of his crimes. The proverbial smoking gun, as it were, among the items on the computer were files relating to the opening and closing of mortgages, invoices for the shell company Harrison Associates, and a picture of a U.S. passport issued to one Justin Lieberman. The hard drive also contained copies of agreements for the mailboxes that the suspects used and the card numbers for SVCs that were sent to said mailboxes. For good measure, much of this information was also found on a Sony Vail laptop discovered in David Taylor's BMW. The feds had already been sizing Plottin up for a fall and eventually took him into custody, where he remained through his guilty plea on charges stemming from the fraudulent mortgage schemes. But Allen did not go into federal custody quietly. He cooperated with New Jersey authorities, and once he began spilling the beans, the police immediately began searching for Gina Conway. On September 26, 2007, the search for Conway brought Bergen County Prosecutor's Office Detective Dave Brazzarda to Max B's residence at 1950 Andrews Avenue in the Bronx. According to the detective, Mr. Wingate was very helpful. Mr. Wingate dealt himself in. Brazzarda would later recall at trial he was forthcoming about his dealings with Miss Conway, even told them addresses that she was known to frequent. Max revealed that she could be at Murder Mike's, where stolen property was later found. Max also told him about Sin City, close to where they ultimately caught her. Max gave the officer his cell number and even called him on more than one occasion during the preliminary investigation. Brazzarda recalled one instance when he went to interview Max and the rappers outside his Bronx residence talking on the phone with Jim Jones. The police talking to me about some bullshit. Max was overheard telling his future nemesis. Max even let the police search his apartment to look for Gina. It was clear from the officer's testimony that Max was not considered a suspect at this time. So remember, right, somebody wrote this, you feel me? And what they trying to say right here make it seem like Max was telling, you feel me? But I ain't never heard about this, you feel me? So, the authenticity on this report, I'm going to have to, I can't give it 100% credit because I never heard about Max telling. And they saying he pretty much told where the girl is, where Gina is at. You feel me? And I never heard that to this day. Whatever. The search for Gina Conway ended on September 28, 2006 around 12:30 a.m. when she tried to borrow money from Mr. Goldston. She was placed under arrest and taken to the 32nd precinct. Conway's cooperated with the officers who interrogated her. It is at this point that things got complicated. Gina was Mirandized at 12:58 a.m. and the tape of her confession started rolling at 1 a.m. Whatever was said during those 2 minutes, Miss Conway proceeded to sing like a bird, painting Mr. Wingate as the mastermind behind the botched burglary that left David Taylor dead with a gunshot wound to the face. So she scorned. You feel me? She scorned, and that's how Max's name even got put into it. You feel me? After interviewing Miss Conway, officers proceeded to Max's apartment and arrested him at about 6 a.m. that same morning. The long arm of the law caught up with Kevin Leardem at his aunt's apartment on Flatlands Ave in the Canarsie neighborhood of Brooklyn, where he was also taken to custody. So she snitched on everyone. You know what I mean? Only weeks after Max was arrested and charged with a slew of felonies, including murder, Jim Jones released the first single for his upcoming album. The song, entitled Ballin', quickly became a nationwide hit with the help of New York football giants. On their way to the franchise's first Super Bowl victory in 17 years, the Giants players began pantomiming jump shots to celebrate big plays. The move was an obvious reference to the song, which was already popular on local radio. Giant Stadium, soon began playing the song over the PA system. The Giants' success on the field certainly paid off for the Capo, who watches the song hits the ride with one of the NFL's most popular teams as they toured through the playoffs on national television. The single gained attraction unlike anything Jones had been able to generate before, from strip clubs to sporting events. Ballin' was everywhere. Meanwhile, the man who claimed quite credibly, since he is credited on the album to have written the song for Jones, was sitting in a New Jersey jail cell under a $2 million bail. The single would peak at a meteoric number 5 on the Billboard charts, and Jim's subsequent LP commercially outperformed all his previous work, selling over 100,000 units in his first week. Max B was featured on 7 songs of the album songs and claims he co-wrote or collaborated on many more. Regardless of exactly what he did, Max's influence on Jim's music is plain to hear, and Jim was no fool. He clearly saw Wingate's talents and put them to good use. The problem was Max was in prison now and seemed to think that with all he had done to ensure Jim's success, it was time for some payback. But for Jones, the $2 million bail was likely starting to seem like a lot to pay for someone who could be on their way back to jail for a very long time. So bail, you get the money back. You feel me? I think Jim Jones ain't had the bread for real, but this is where the issue started. This is where, Max really felt the way when he couldn't get bailed out immediately. You feel me? After putting in so much work for Jim Jones, you feel me? And actually taking Jim Jones to the next level, along with Stack Bundles. Now let's get back into it. It is possible that he had never been arrested. Max and Jim would have fallen out anyway, but Max's prison stint made it a certainty. The friction started when, after months in the can, Max began publicly airing his grievance at having not been bailed out yet. Apparently sitting in the jail day room and watching Jones pose in front of luxury vehicles while reciting lyrics Max wrote in the wrong way. Go figure. While stopping short of outright disrespecting his former boss, Max made it clear that he felt something fishy was going on and it seemed to impugn Jones' financial dealings with him. Jones caught various pleasing interviews about why he hadn't put up his protege's bail money, alluding to wanting to wait until the bail was lowered or wanting to give Max the money once the rapper was released. What spurred him to finally act, we may never know, but at least one party has alleged that Jimmy only decided to bail Max out after he found out somebody else might. Whatever his reason, Jones' next move would make Lago blush, Suge Knight blush, and even the infamous Morris Mo Levy tip his fedora. Jim Capo Jones went to the jail and gave Max the $90,000 he needed to get out of jail in return for Max inking a new contract. When the relationship between Max and Jim later turned to outright acrimony, Jones would tell radio disc jockey Funk Master Flex that he signed to my label and Bob's Publishing for a roughly $90,000, which he cried over the phone to get out of jail for. He sold the stupidest move I've ever heard anybody make in their entire life. So pretty much, Jim Jones was like, yo, you ain't getting this money unless you sign this contract. And Max did it. Max was thirsty. He wanted to get out of jail. He don't like jail. Max a fly nigga. You feel me? But that definitely put Max in a tough situation. You know what I mean? Let's get back into it. It did not take long for Max to realize that he had made a costly mistake. He would later claim that Jim had been eager for him to get back in the studio after bailing Max out, but Max felt he was owed more money. He also seemed to be becoming leery of continuing to do Jim Jones albums when his own solo work was getting scant attention from the Capo. For his part, Jones would later imply that the wisecracking rapper was attempting to rise above his station and being unappreciative of what Jones had done for him before and after the arrest. By this time, Jim had parlayed the success of Ballin' into a financially significant deal with Columbia Records. Rockefeller was already history, and the Dame Dash was more than happy to hitch his wagon to Jim's. They began working not only on this album, but a documentary and a potential reality show. Meanwhile, the Diplomats as a crew had pretty much ceased to function as Jim and Cameron slowly grew apart, and Jones made it clear that he had every intention of being bigger than Cam ever was. The most successful personalities in Dipset, Cameron Jones and Joel Santana, parted ways and began promoting their own new crews. The second-tier Diplomats artists like 40 Cal, Hellrell, and J.R. Ryder were left largely to sink or swim on their own. So when Max began to disassociate himself from Jim and Bird Gang, the Diplomats, it made sense that Jones had neither the time nor the desire to try and placate his former weed carrier. They getting disrespectful. However, the more he nonchalantly dismissed Max's twerping and nobody, the more lyrical gasoline Max poured on the fire he was attempting to light under the so-called Capo. Suddenly, Jim's, whose whole career had been filled with disrespectful interviews and vendettas against some of New York's more respected rappers, was getting a taste of his own medicine. If Jones had set the bar high for ignorant foolishness and blatant goonery, Max B cleared it on his first try. His claims were legion. He wrote all of Jim's songs. He pepper sprayed Jim at an event. Jim's wife, he tried to seduce him on numerous occasions. Jim was a homosexual. Jim couldn't come to Harlem anymore. Jim needed police protection to keep Max from getting at him, and so on. To Wingate's credit, people started to notice and pretty soon Max was omnipresent in hip-hop blogosphere. His non-coastal style and easily digestible lyrics won fans in this age of hook-driven regional hip-hop. His amusing interviews and on-camera antics kept the internet turning to him for ready-to-post controversy. It did not hurt that veteran beatmaker Dane Grease was backing him, giving the mixtapes an additional level of credibility. The time of the Max's feud against Jim Jones also gained him additional listeners because of the controversy surrounding the dissolution of the Diplomats. At least some hip-hoppers tuned into Max's shtick simply because Jim Jones is a polarizing figure in hip-hop, and generally speaking, everyone likes to see a bully get bullied. All this combined with his distinctive slang, surfing-related catchphrases, and ongoing murder case meant that Max's visibility was at an all-time high. Unfortunately for Max, no matter how many graphic verbal attacks he made against Jim and his wifey, and regardless of how many hours of anti-Jones DVD footage he compiled, the couple held one hell of a trump card. The entirety of Charlie Wingate's publishing was now the legal property of Jim Jones. This meant that anything he had done in the past put money in Jim's pockets, and anything he would ever do was essentially under Jim's direct control. Max could put out free mixtapes and Did He Ever, or other penny ante deals that Jim couldn't be bothered to track down and stop, but at any hope for mainstream or even independent success would have to come with Jim Jones' blessing. By now, however, Jones had clearly had enough of Max's antics and had no inclination to be charitable. He made it clear that Max had passed the point of no return in an interview with WorldStarHipHop.com, saying, "Maxi Pad? He's like Finding Nemo right now. Where is that shit? Actually, he's on the shelf right next to my Nike boots. We ain't never let him come out." With little more than a word of Gina Conway, the trial of the state New Jersey versus Wingate, Leardom and Conway began. The fact that Max and Kelvin were tried together raises the first set of eyebrows. As attorney Jennifer Bonjean would argue on her client's behalf, the two men's defense strategies should have kept the trial separate. Gerald Saluti-esque argued that Gina was a woman scorned and that Mr. Wingate was never at the crime scene and was not involved in the crime at all. Ms. Bonjean's argument was that whomever Ms. Conway brought to the Holiday Inn as muscle, it was not Kevin Leardom. After all the police were unable to find a murder weapon or any physical evidence tying Leardom to the crime scene, although Leardom had a drug conviction, there was no previous involvement with violent crime on his criminal record. When reached for comment, Ms. Bonjean pointed out that there were significant irregularities in the witness identification as well. So, one of the main issues in the trial was that Max and Kelvin, they went to trial together. They didn't separate the case. But if they had separated the case, that would leave room for dry snitching. You feel me? Because you could kind of just like lean it over on this person and lean it over on this person. You see what I'm saying? But I don't know, man. I think the lawyer was trash, man. I think the lawyer could have did a little better, man. I don't know Max's financial situation with the lawyer. You feel me? But obviously, he wasn't getting as much money as, he should have been getting, man. You know what I mean? Honestly, overall. But let's get back into it. Alan Plowden. Sorry, y'all. Alan Plowden was presented with 2 photo arrays in the hopes of making an identification of the shooter. The first photo array contained a photo of my client, and he did not identify my client. He did not identify anybody. They showed him a second photo array where they put an updated version of my client in the array, and Plowden actually identified somebody else. He identified one of the fillers. So that was very problematic for the investigation. The lead victim, the person with supposedly the best ability to identify the man in the room, not only wasn't able to do so in one array, but actually identified the wrong person in the second photo array. Nevertheless, when he appeared as a prosecution witness during the trial of Wingate and Leardom, Alan J. Plowden readily fingered Kelvin as a shooter. Bonjean considers the testimony laughable, given Mr. Plowden's failure on 2 occasions to pick her client out of a photo array, and says she argued that the state did not have good faith basis to ask Plowden to make an identification in court after his earlier failures. And as far as cab driver Mamdou Gemba's identification to Leardom, Ms. Bonjean had the following to say. What the police did, which I think is improper, is they did not show him a photo array because I think they questioned his ability to make an identification. So he's never shown a photo array or asked to identify the person who he drove in a cab that night with Gina Conway. But come trial, they put him on a stand and he made an in-court identification of my client. I argue that it was improper to even elicit that testimony. In fact, it is going to be an issue on appeal. That it was improper to have him identify someone from a suggestive situation where you have him sitting at counsel table with 2 white lawyers. The only black people sitting at counsel table were Charlie Wingate and my client. The cab driver knew who Charlie Wingate was and had him driven on prior occasions. So there was only one person left to choose. When I questioned Mr. Gimbo on cross-examination about his recollection of the person he drove in the cab, he had no ability to describe him, and in fact described him differently to police. Reviewing the records of the trial, it is clear that both defenses would have been better served if the trial had been split. One instance involved cell phone records. Detective John Haviland of the prosecutor's office testified that on the night of the crime, Miss Conway chirped Miss Leardom about the time they should have been in the cab looking for the hotel. While possible that they could have been playing as they drove around, it is curious that they would chirp each other on the way to commit a felony in the same vehicle. The prosecutor did say it could have been the two talking to each other as they fanned out across the Holiday Inn, but it still didn't add up. Points such as this could have been better argued if the defense co-counsel didn't have to worry about implicating the co-defendant. When asked, Jennifer Bongine detailed several other ways that the joint trial hurt both Wingate and Leardom. So back in the Gap, we had Nextels and Boost Mobiles, and we had this thing called Chirp. So it kind of was like a voice message. So you could chirp somebody real quick, and if they answer, they could talk right back to you, or you could leave them like a recording. So if I chirp right now on this phone, I would press a button, I'll press it, and then do like a little chirp. Then I'll be like, hey, yo, bro, what's the word? And it'll send that voice message to that person. So he could send it to me. He could send it to me recorded, or we could just talk on a chirp while we both holding the joint. You see what I'm saying? So that was back in the day before we had the phones of today. Now let's get back into it. I felt strongly that the trial should be severed. Both men's defenses were limited by virtue of the fact that they were sitting next to each other. Speaking hypothetically, Mr. Wingate could have, he did not, but he could have tried to point the finger at Gina and Mr. Leardom. But that would have been more easily done had they been severed. Similarly, we argued before the judge that we intended to present a defense which centered around third-party culpability, meaning that Gina Conway did this crime with somebody else, and that one of the possible people she could have done it with was Charlie Wingate or other persons associated with Charlie Wingate. Ultimately, that was not necessarily the defense's pursuit, but we didn't want to be limited in our defense. But the court denied it, and as I understand, getting a case severed in New Jersey is pretty difficult. So it's hard to get the case severed. So that's when you separate the case. You feel me? If two people are on the same case, you separate it. You feel me? You fight it. This person fights it this way, and this person fights it this way. But it's hard in Jersey to do that, I guess. Another quirky aspect of the trial was that the prosecution's entire case is based on a witness that is sketchy for more than one reason. As noted before, Miss Conway loved her ecstasy and her alcohol. She was drunk and high when the crime was committed, and when she gave her statement to the police, at more than one point she testified that the intoxicants had clouded not only her memory but also her perception of events as they happened. For instance, she said on the stand that Mr. Leardom threatened her with his gun and directed her to do things in the hotel. She had never before stated that she was under duress during the crime. Her testimony is seemingly riddled with enough inconsistencies to cast a shadow over everything she had said under oath. During Gerald Saluti's cross-examination, Ms. Conway stated that she did not commit the crime, despite the fact that she pled guilty and faced up to 18 years in prison. When asked who did the crime, she pointed to the defense table and said they did. Saluti continued reminding her that she signed a document saying she did commit the crimes, and that what she signed and said in her statement was the truth. The truth didn't matter much to her, as she explained repeatedly that the main reason she copped her plea was to avoid life in prison. She continued to hedge her bets throughout the testimony, claiming that the plea is basically true, but that she signed it in an act of self-preservation. So she just wasn't giving a fuck. She was like, even though she pled out, she still was like on some shit like, no, they did it. You feel me? Because she wasn't trying to get in trouble. But she already is in trouble. This is why you gotta be careful with the bitches you fuck around with, man. Let's go back into it. When Giselle Neves, the woman who was held captive along with Jay Plottin during the robbery, took the stand, she only added to the murkiness. At one point, she testified that, in her opinion, Plottin had been in on a robbery from the beginning. She went on to state that he seemed unperturbed when Taylor was killed and was mostly concerned with his notorious bag of money. Of course, according to her own testimony, she herself was only in the room as part of a wholly unconnected scheme to rob Plottin and Taylor. Neither Charlie Wingate nor Kevin Leardom took the stand during the trial to explain the nature of their relationship with Miss Conway or offer an alibi. The whereabouts of the duffel bag of cash David Taylor supposedly had in his own hotel room are not known, if indeed such a bag did exist. And yo, to my niggas getting money, man, be careful with these scallywags, man. You're gonna get shut up. You feel me? Like, for real. I hope y'all paying attention to, how treacherous these women are. And, now is a time where scams are really big. So you getting that African Nigerian money, you know what I'm saying? You better be careful, my boy. Perhaps most surprising is that none of the many people involved in this convoluted Venn diagram of a case seems to have benefited at all from their respective schemes. As of this writing, Max and his stepbrother await sentencing later this month from inside a jail in northern New Jersey. They continue to protest their innocence and say they will be filing appeals. Gina Conway also awaits sentencing. Although having cooperated with the authorities as part of her guilty plea should ensure that she does significantly less than the 18-year maximum penalty that she copped out to. Since she has already done about 3 years inside and is being credited with time served, a lenient sentencing might mean that she would be out in 7 to 10 years. Attorney Gerald Salute has spoken at length about his close relationship with Wingate and has vowed that he will not rest until he sees Max's convictions overturned. Unfortunately for Salute, the press has roundly criticized his actions before and during. And after the trial, as of press time, we were unable to reach him or even determine if he was still employed with his last known firm. When we called the only number we could find, a woman would only tell us that she had been instructed to say that Mr. Salute no longer worked there. Alan Potton is in federal prison facing decades behind bars on a host of interstate and fraud charges. Being that he is 44 years old and there is no parole in the federal system, Alan may very well die inside prison. Who's Alan? It's supposed to be Jay. Like, y'all tripping. Jay plowed, you feel me? Jim Jones got his big shot as a solo artist on Columbia, but without Max, the album flopped hard, and he was not yet managed a hit single on par with Ballin'. He still owns Max's publishing, but being that the perm rapper may never get out of jail and has dependency support, Jim may be forced to sell it back at a cost or run the risk of appearing to be taking food out the mouth of Wingate's newborn. All right, man. Most people seek to take advantage of their opportunities. Everyone connected to the saga saw opportunities to take advantage. Each actor here established an interlocking web wherein they took turns playing and being played. Jim Jones has nothing to do with the murders in New Jersey, but his attempt to rise from middling independent artist to hip-hop mogul on par with Jay-Z and 50 Cent was greatly aided by the writing talents of Max B. Then when Max saw Jim's help in making Bill the Capo obliged by pulling off one of the rap industry's more noteworthy shenanigans when he obtained Max's publishing rights in return. This wasn't all bad for Max, as this provided him with a soapbox from which to rail against Jim Jones, the very person who co-signed his entry into the music game. As fewer Jones raised his profile considerably, which in the end may help his dependents, assuming Jim ever gives up the publishing. Charlie Wingate and Gina Conway in turn used one another for all they were worth. Max provided Gina a way out of the boondocks and a chance to live the life of a rapper's girlfriend. That was fine with Charlie, as Gina offered a ready supply of sex and pocket money. For Gina, opportunity knocked when she met Jay Potton and his bottomless bag of cash. Taylor and Potton took advantage of stolen identities and pocketed a lot of cash in the short run, but they both paid a steep price in the end. The lawyer who presented Charlie's case, Gerald Salute, also knew a good business opportunity when he saw one. Whether he was in YouTube videos outlining his defense strategy, announcing a new career as a hip-hop manager, or tweeting during trial, Salute made sure everyone knew he was defending Mr. Wingate. As for Matty Castro, Julio Cruz, and Eddie Blocano, their case is still pending for a robbery they claim they never even got the opportunity to execute. So at the end, I was talking about them Dominican dudes, you feel me? But, all this shit, man, it's definitely a lesson, an inside story on the case. So if you ever was wondering why Max got 75 years, you feel me, it was due to the fact that, he got a little desperate for cash, man. And, my man had a spending habit. You hear his music, you feel me, True Religions, Nike boots, you feel me, Pelly Pels, all that fly shit Max was on, you feel me. The belt with the bedazzles on it, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was doing a lot of wavy shit, spending a lot of money, living a fast life. But he wasn't able to preserve his money, you feel me? So it put him in a situation of desperation and, had him, put in a bad area, man. He got put in a blender with this girl, man. This girl ended up being the worst thing for him, man. So, this is why, man, I feel a way about stick-ups and, setting niggas up, because there's always that opportunity of things going for the worse. And, you can go up in there, nigga, just try and get the money. You can go up in there not even want to do that, like, you know what I mean? But then you just run to somebody who just don't give a fuck. They're not afraid to die. You feel me? They actually want you to do it. You know what I'm saying? They give a fuck about life. And, that's one of the situations that a lot of niggas who are doing life in jail end up in, man. You know what I mean? They don't be wanting to take nobody's life. They just want to get the money, you feel me? But a nigga be so hard-headed, be like, nah, I ain't giving it up. You gotta kill me for it. You know what I mean? Niggas end up killing him for it, man. So, free Max B, man, my favorite rapper. That's a little breakdown. I can't tell you that this is all 100% true, but it's definitely some direction of what the fuck actually happened. And, he'll come home soon and be able to talk about it, man. He coming home this November, man. So, shout out to y'all for tuning in, man. Let's get it.